Hi, everyone, and welcome to Teens in Politics, the podcast where teens discuss their views on political issues that are happening in the world right now. My name is Alfin, and I'm here with Jamie.
Hello.
Silali.
Hi.
Layla.
Hello.
And Allison.
Hey, we'd also like to thank Addison, Christine, Samantha, Danny, and Amber for helping us behind the scenes on this podcast. Some of the topics that we talk about can be very controversial. We respect everyone's opinions, and if you find yourself disagreeing, you are free to stop listening to the podcast. Once again, we respect everyone's opinions. Thank you and enjoy today's episode.
So how do you guys feel about Biden winning the presidency?
I think Biden winning is good news for the LGBTQ community. I think it's good news for trans individuals who recently got a lot of their rights taken away by the Supreme Court. I think it's good news for the Supreme Court, LGBTQ community that have their rights on the line, their marriage rights on the line. I think it's really great that Kamala Harris became the first female vice president. So I think we're making great, huge moves within the government because our past has been old white men, and where has that gotten us?
I'd like to point out, I guess just as a small warning, most of us here, I think all of us lean left here, so our opinions could be particularly agreeing with, the other candidate. But I guess both sides are very interesting. They both support very different things. One of the things, even though I'm on with Biden, I support Biden. One of the things I don't agree with is the tax plan he has. I think it's very unfair how he's trying to tax people that earn more money, tax them more. I think that's very unfair because that goes against all the belief of equality, just taxing them more. And it's just...
Actually, it's not just taxing the middle class, it's actually taxing the rich. So basically taxing people who have millions of dollars, and even if they say they can't pay their taxes, they'll still have some money left over, so they can still pay the taxes.
Okay, yes, I get it. They have more money, but some of those people earn that money with hard work, and they don't deserve to be treated that way. It's not fair.
Then again, there are a lot of those people who have family money, and I think it's okay for them to bear some.
Well, I don't necessarily have an opinion on his tax plan, but I'm not saying I agree with it, but I don't say I disagree with it either. Because while it is true that some people work very hard, I see where Biden's coming from, what he wants to do. In my mind, I feel he's trying to, get more money from them, even though since they do make more money.
Okay, so I see, I understand that point of view, and I understand that's why he's doing it. But then, isn't the whole point of America, we're supposed to be equal. Some people worked really hard to get to that place. There are people who are born, rich so that they got that money, right? But there are also people YouTubers and, business people, they worked hard to get to that place. They started as a small business and they got bigger. YouTubers, they had 0 followers, 100, 200, and then 1 million, it takes a long time.
And yes, I get what you're saying. Some people, it was just family money, but someone earned that money. Someone worked hard to get up there, and I guess then their family members got the money. But I think it's just very unfair because the big idea of being a Democrat is for everyone to be equal, and that tax plan is just, it doesn't work with me.
I think it makes everyone equal because, in my opinion, because if a waitress is taxed a certain amount of money, do you think a billionaire should be taxed the same amount of money? That just doesn't seem right to me. I can see where you're coming from, but I think if you make $1 million a year, I don't think it should be a problem if you have to pay a little extra tax money.
I actually agree with that, yes, because what do billionaires have to complain about? I want complaints that have evidence and that have reasoning to complain about. What do billionaires have to complain about? They have the money for it. Might as well just pay a little more money on taxes. But oh no, the celebrities are worried, or those big political billionaires don't want to don't want to pay in that little extra money because, oh, we're so depressed and all that. Like, come on now.
I mean, I see your point. Like, again, like, I have to go back to the point of equality because, like, imagine they were like, oh, we're going to tax the poor more, the middle class more. Then how would you feel if they were taxing you more? Then you think it's unfair. And even though that's obviously not what's happening, it's still, it could be unfair to them. Yes, they could spare money, but I mean, maybe they're using it for other things that, I mean, I don't know. I guess I could see your point because, yeah, they could spare money, but the whole ideal of it is just for it to be equal.
Okay, so like, okay, I understand where all of y'all are coming from, especially like I agree more with Allison though about like how I don't think it's fair and like we need to be more equal. But I understand Danny's point though too. Like Danny put it so well about the waitress and the billionaire. And I guess you don't specifically ever think about a waitress and like compare it to a billionaire. Usually more stereotypically we have like nurses or I don't know, something smaller. Actually, I don't know something smaller because or like a person who works at like McDonald's or Chick-fil-A, but I guess that would be considered okay, something close to that. I'm sorry if I'm wrong. But like I honestly still go with the Constitution. Like we're learning all about this in history class of like how we need to be more equal. And like the whole point of America going away from England, like breaking apart, was just because we weren't treated fairly. And so if we're going to do that to US now, like are we like okay with the US breaking apart? Like it was already breaking apart. We're just going to make it worse now.
And a big problem back then, like the reason they broke off from England too was because they were being taxed. I mean, that's kind of, I don't know, kind of ironic in a way, because just imagine that problem kind of resurfacing again. It's just, didn't they call, I think, I heard, didn't they call like the tomato vegetable just because they wanted to tax that? That's like very off topic. But like, I mean, the whole point they broke off over freaking England was because the freaking taxes. I mean, back then it was because they weren't being represented, but that was a big problem.
I understand where all of you are coming from, with everyone should be equal. But the thing with being equal is that if a waitress gets taxed, let's say like 20% of what she makes yearly, right? Obviously, that's not how it works, but let's say that was the case. So she gets taxed that much money. A billionaire would get taxed 20% of what they make. So everybody's getting taxed the same amount, but just because they're a billionaire, that means that's going to be a larger amount of money. My question for Allison is, how do you think it should be handled? Like, if you were the president, how would you make a tax plan?
I mean, of course, I'm not an expert at that, but the whole point of supporting Biden is for everything to be equal. You say you support the LGBTQ, and I support that too, and you want that to be equal, so then you'd want everything else to be equal too. And yes, they have more money, and it's still something to consider. That's what I think.
Okay, so from like Danny's point of like Danny, like I'm gonna try to answer your question, kind of. So like I was thinking we could do like specific plans made for people who make less than a specific amount of money a year so that they won't like have to be taxed as hard or like something like that along the lines. And well, I mean, it would still be, I guess, unequal, but at the same time, it would be more equal than like saying people over $400,000 that makes that much money a year will be taxed like more, you know, because like if you make specific plans for this, like okay, if you make like less than $20,000, I don't know if somebody does, I don't know, right? If you make less than $20,000 a year, we have this plan, like a scholarship, you know, like we need to use scholarships for college and stuff, and so if we made scholarships or funds for those type of things, it would be better. Allison, how do you feel?
I was gonna say taxing like the tax plan, I disagree with Biden on that. But another big issue, or just one of the more kind of not controversial issues, but a big issue between both of the presidents is how they handle abortion, or if they want to support abortion. So I mean, I don't know what y'all think about. I mean, I want to ask Jamie, what do you think about abortion?
For the discussion of abortion, I really thing that I don't really have a say-so about this because, like, I'm a dude. So,
Okay, so Jamie, just a question, okay? Do you think men should have the right to like tell women like, hey, it's okay to abort, or like, hey, you can't abort that baby because it's mine also? Like, how do you feel about that?
all I can say is that no, I believe that men shouldn't have the right to tell a woman what to do. It's their decision. And that's all I'm going to say.
What's your
I
reasoning for that? Like, why? I mean, like, I understand your point, like, but I'm just asking, what's
My
your
reasoning? It's literally simple. He's a man, she's a woman. She gets pregnant, she gets to do whatever she wants to that baby.
I don't agree with your reasoning. I mean, like I get your point, but I just don't agree with your reasoning part of it. Like, I mean, she's been pregnant for 9 months. She has to carry that baby that long, and she also has like difficulties while doing that. You know, that would be a better reasoning. Is this like what I personally believe? But like, go ahead, dude. How do you feel, Allison?
mean, I think I agree with Jamie. Like, yes, everyone can vote in America, and that's one of the biggest topics. But I don't think men should have a right to vote on this just because they don't know the process. They don't go through it. And I mean, I'm not old. Like, I can't go through that process. I haven't gone through it. But it's different. It's a different point of view being a girl. Like, I guess they don't go through the same experience. And going on abortion, I think, look, I disagree with the fact that yes, like little babies are getting aborted, but at the same time, I think everyone should have a freedom with their own body and they should have the choice on what to do. What do you think, Alvin?
Okay, so like from your point, I get that. But also, if you're gonna say like men shouldn't be able to like vote on that, then there are women who haven't been pregnant before, right? Like they've never been pregnant, they never had a child, and like they're like voicing their opinions on it. They're like, oh, you should be able to abort, or like, no, you can't abort because I don't know, it's a child. I don't know their reasoning, but I'm just saying there are women who haven't been pregnant and they're like voicing their opinions on that. Like, what do you guys think about that?
So obviously, I think we're all pretty much pro-choice here. I agree with Alvin. That woman has to carry the baby for 9 months. She has to go through the morning sickness and the nausea and all that stuff. And she also has to give birth, which could damage a woman's body. And a friend of mine recently talked about something considering abortion, and she talked about how a woman's baby can be like really sick, and if someone decides to make abortion illegal, and this woman has this baby and she knows that once she gives birth to this baby it isn't going to live long, why would you do that to a child? Why would you have a baby just so it has to die within like the first hour of its life? That's just an example of like why abortion should be legal, why women should be able to do abortion when they want to, because it is a baby. But like you have to think about the baby's life, and if the baby is going to have a neglectful or a short life, then I don't think that baby should have to be born.
Wow, that's very good point. I mean, no one really thinks about that. But also you guys never answered my question, which was like women who have not been pregnant, meaning like they don't plan on like being pregnant. Like, do they have the right to voice their opinion? Like they've never gone through the pains of pregnancy. And so like pretty much us, like we never felt it before and we're like putting our voice in it already, you know? How do you
Yes.
feel about that?
I think they should be able to voice their opinion because they are women and they can get pregnant, because the whole thing is about like it's her body, it's her choice. So she's a woman. She could get pregnant, so she should be able to talk about it.
I mean, I guess that makes sense. But also if you guys are pro-life, right, then are you guys doing anything to like help the foster system? Because like pro-life means pro-life like everybody, you know? And so these kids don't have good like homes. They don't like, not everyone is like letting kids go into their houses and, you know, like taking them as their own child, you know?
While I don't necessarily agree with pro-life, even if they are, I'm hoping that they will do something about the foster system, because I also feel as though abortion is also another is caused because the foster, or it could be caused because the foster system is just not that great. Because they make it so hard to adopt children, and it's
I mean, Layla, just questionably, well, if like I understand it is hard to adopt a child, but then if you don't have the right amount of money and if you don't have like the right type of housing, how are you supposed to be able to take care of that child? Aren't you just going to take it from an environment and put it into a verser, which is not a word, Danny?
While we're talking about foster care, I would like to bring up the law that I don't think it was passed, but I think Trump wanted to pass it when he was still president and whatever, that gay couples should not be allowed to adopt children. That's just an example of how hard it is to adopt children. I've had experience in my family where foster care has been completely useless to abuse children. And basically, foster care, in my opinion, is just there for their paycheck, and they don't really care about those kids. There's a small percentage of people who actually do care about kids in that system, but the rest are just there for their paycheck, and they make it way too hard for kids to have a good life.
I mean, and some like going like back to that topic, like some people have the kids, and I'm saying, oh, they should abort and not have the kid. But I'm saying some people are, yes, giving birth to the kid, but then they're just sent to foster care where they're not being taken care of properly. And it's not good for the child, for them to grow up that way.
Also, like, just another point, if they're 18 and if they're not given their, like, I don't know, good, what do you call it? Like, the stuff we're given, like us, because we have families that are taking care of us, we have the privilege of going to high school, we have the privilege of getting scholarships because of the GPA and all the clubs and organizations we've been in. But like those kids in foster homes, they have never been given those opportunities, you know? So like, do you think those kids that are 18, should they still be able to stay in foster care, or do they have to like fend for themselves?
So it's kind of a broad topic because like they can't stay in foster care forever considering they're not children. But in my opinion, if I were president for a day, I would make it possible for these kids to have a good start. I'd give them a small apartment, I'd give them like food stamps for food and stuff, a small amount of money, kind of like a disability check, because that swings around to our homelessness issue in America. A lot of kids that come out of there, they just end up homeless, and a lot of them go to jail for doing bad things for money, and then the government and older people like to blame them, call them lazy and stuff, and then that's just a huge issue.
Sorry, yeah, I see your point. But then like this would round back to taxing the people, because then if we need the money to do those things, right? And I agree that like we should, but I mean, honestly though, if we gave those children opportunities to high schools and clubs, organizations, I think that would be better than giving them, well, okay, not better, but like, because if we give them apartments and money and food stamps, it's a lot of money on the government. And who does the government tax? Us. And then like, that just sounds so mean for coming from my point of view. But in all honesty, it like rounds. It's like a big circle, tax, then foster care. Yeah.
I do understand where you're coming from. It is a lot of money, and it is a lot of people who require all of this if it was to be put into action. But think about how much money the government has. How much money the government has to like buy Trump his wigs or something. I don't know. They have a lot of freaking money, and they tax us way too much. Just saying. They have a lot of money, and I think they can spare some. It's not like it has to be like a 2-bedroom apartment, just a tiny apartment, maybe not even that. Maybe just a small check.
How much money should be on that check?
It depends on how often they get it. Is it going to be like a paycheck every 2 weeks? Is it going to be monthly, weekly, even yearly? I don't think it should be very much money, because you can do a lot with a little amount of money. And if we're trying to, cut costs, then maybe like $100, $200 every 2 weeks, just enough to buy food and stuff And this isn't forever, of course. It's just until they can get on their feet or get in a good college or even just community college, or find a place to live, just until they can become a productive member of society independently.
Wow, that was really well put, Danny.
We'd like to thank everyone for watching our podcast. This is the first part of the podcast. The second one is to be released shortly since it came out a little long. We'd also like to give a special thanks to everyone who was able to vote in this election. We hope to have the same opportunity soon enough. Thank you and have a great rest of your day.